What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down some very important technical developments on the charts and some very important levels to watch for which are going to be very important for the next couple of hours. But before I break anything down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weebull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Weebull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. Now, this offer ends in just about 11 days from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market so far. So we have some very interesting technical developments on Tesla, SPY, and all these other tickers. We have inverse head and shoulders on Tesla, on SPY, on the QQQ, Apple, and Nvidia, and maybe not as cleanly on Nvidia, but on the other tickers for sure. I want to break down some very important levels now and what happened for today. So in the morning, basically, I called out more downside on Tesla, SPY, and all these different tickers. And yes, these things dropped quite a bit. Tesla was at 218, it tanked all the way down to 210. And then intraday, Tesla and these tickers started developing these inverse head and shoulders like structures, and they're starting to uptrend from this point on. So there is an attempt to bounce that's going on right now. And in order for these attempts to be like more valid, to gain more strength, we want to be watching some very, very key levels, which I'm going to call out over the next couple of minutes. So, even though SPY's max pain, for example, is at like 430, let me just reload this just to double check and make sure it's like up to date. Yep, it's showing 430. It does not mean we have to close up there, but there could be an attempt for at least a slight rebound, just looking at the current technicals. So we're going to start off with Tesla. How is Tesla looking? Well, we have this inverse head and shoulders, and we have these levels in particular. So one thing worth mentioning is that going back on the chart, I told you all that around this 212 area, we have some critical support because this is where Tesla got a bounce in the past. So I know I have a lot of levels. I don't usually like keep this many, but I'm keeping a lot just because we always want to be prepared in case anything happens to Tesla. But anyways, Tesla sold off today. All right, it came down not to 212. It actually broke a little bit below that, coming down to 210 before this thing ended up getting some buyers to step in. So very interesting. Came very close to 212, which is our target. Dropped a little bit below that before getting a bounce. So what are some levels to watch for? Okay, for support, make sure you watch Tesla's critical support at 212. That's a very, very important support zone. Super, super strong support right there historically, also in the 210 area. So make sure you watch those two levels very, very closely. And for resistance right now, as Tesla's trying to bounce, you're going to be watching, this 215 area. 215 is going to be really, really important. If Tesla manages to break above this, you're going to be watching and try to push up towards 216.8, which is where we have some more resistance. If we get above this, you're going to be watching 218.6 around here, which is where the upper, this upper candlestick happens to be. And this 218 zone is where we have historical resistance. So between 218 and 218.6 will be the next resistance zone. If we get above the 218s, there's going to be 220, 222.5, and then 225 as resistance. Anyways, those are the important levels to be watching for. What is Tesla doing right now? Basically, Tesla is trying to uptrend, but it's not super strong. It's not like in a very, very big squeeze, where it runs 10 points in a matter of a couple of hours. It's nothing like that. It's just a very slow and steady uptrend. It's trying to uptrend, but it's getting hit with some tough resistance in the 215s. So we're going to be watching Tesla around this range. I think it's just going to be a very slow uptrend for the time being. It's not going to be like super strong, but very, very slow and steady. And we're going to be watching to see if Tesla can try to get up above 216 very, very soon. If it manages to do that, like I said before, there is more potential for it. I also want to call out that at 218.5, we happen to have uh, our 200 EMA. So it's very close to that resistance range I called out at 218 to 218.6. That's the 200 EMA as well, which could be a target for Tesla if we do manage to break and hold above the 216 resistance. So we're going to be watching these levels. It could just be a very slow and steady uptrend. It doesn't have to be a crazy big squeeze, but we're starting to see buyers stepping in finally on Tesla. Yes, we did drop in the morning like I called out, but now we're getting an intraday bounce. So watch these levels. On SPY, something very similar happened, right? We got a 10-point drop relative to the high at 432. And we also had a very big sell-off today, right? I was calling more selling. And that is what happened. SPY was at 426.5. It came all the way down to 422. And then we established an inverse head and shoulders from here. Now it's trying to uptrend a little bit, but we're going to be watching some very important levels. So we managed to hold 422. This is a key support I was calling out earlier. Let me just show you where the support is on SPY before I talk about other tickers. So on SPY, we had this 422 critical, very, very critical support, which held up very nicely as buyers stepped in. We had some resistance at this 423.5 area, which we managed to break. Now we're testing 424 as resistance. Above that, we have 424.75, 425. And if we break that, 426.5 is a real possibility if we manage to get above 425. And if you break 426.5, there is going to be a lot of potential for it to start pushing even higher for at least 427 plus and then possibly test this resistance. I'm not really counting on it to pump that much, but I believe that there's going to be a slight uptrend, and I believe that it's going to slowly at least try to hold these levels. Now, for support, you need to see this thing hold this key support right here. We have some supports at 423.5, 423 flat, and then we have critical support at 422. We have to hold 422 for the bulls to have an edge. If we fail at 422, it's going to come sinking all the way down, possibly to 420. Okay, there's not a whole lot of support holding it above that. So you're going to be watching these levels very carefully. As of right now, at the time I'm recording this, we have a nice uptrend. You could even draw out a trend line like this. I know it's a little hard to see. I'm sorry about that, guys, but you could see it right here. Let me try to hide these EMAs for the time being. Actually, never mind. It doesn't really matter. But anyways, you guys can see I have this trend line drawn out right here. You guys can see it's uptrending slightly. So it's a very slow and steady uptrend. It's going to be very slow in my opinion. It's not going to just, push super hard and start squeezing like crazy. It's very slow and gradual because the market is just in a slow recovery attempt phase. And we'll see if these levels hold. But always be open-minded. If you want to be very bearish, you want to see it break below 422. We haven't done that so far. If you want to turn really, or at least more bullish, you want to see it break and hold 425. We also have not done that just yet, but we are on a slight uptrend, so the bulls have an edge right now. All right, so watch these levels in particular. Looking at Apple, same structure. We have an inverse head and shoulders like structure. And this level it bounced at was the same level I called out, or very, very close to it by like 3 cents. Let me just show you Apple now. So on Apple, it ended up bouncing off 172.64, and that's when we broke below 174. I told you all if we broke below 174, watch 172.61. So that was like 3 cents away from where we actually bounced. So super, super close on Apple. Apple got this bounce, and now Apple's testing this resistance zone. We just got rejected very close to 174.5. If we break above that, I'm going to be watching for this thing to push towards 175. But we need to hold above 174.5, and we failed to do so just slightly. From this point on, watch 174.5 to 174.75 is resistance, 175, 176 above that. And if we get above 176.5, this thing could start pushing nicely. I don't think Apple's going to push up that hard, but I do believe it's going to try to attempt to hold these levels. If it breaks below 174, watch support right over here at 173.5. If we lose that, then there's potential for it to retest 172.6. So watch these levels very carefully. Now, looking at Apple, we have this uptrend that's being established just like that of SPY. It's trying to hold up above these levels. So I believe it has potential to try to continue to uptrend. And don't forget about the 200 EMA on the 5-minute time frame. We're going to be watching that very carefully and on Apple. All right, so watch for a little bounce right here. See if this thing could try to uptrend a little bit. It's trying to uptrend for the time being, so we'll see if it could try to hold these levels or not. On the QQQ, this is just like SPY with a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure, and there's some important levels to be watching for. So on the QQQ with the inverse head and shoulder structure, it's looking like it's trying to uptrend a bit. However, I would recommend watching these particular levels. So if it starts sinking a little bit lower, you want to be watching support right here at 357 flat. If we lose that, you're going to be watching it potentially retest 355.5 if we end up breaking below 356 as well. And if we lose 355.25, there's potential for it to drop towards 354.75. Now, as of right now, it's holding 355 as critical support, so I believe it's going to likely attempt to hold for the time being. And now it's trying to fight resistance. We have some tight resistance at 358. If we break 358, watch 359, which is previous support becoming resistance. Then we have 360, then 361.69. All right, so those are some very important levels. What do I think the QQQ is going to do? The answer is I think like SPY. It's not going to be like super strong and start squeezing. I don't think it's going to crash either. I think that the downside could be in for the day, possibly if we hold 355. And we're trying to uptrend right now. It's a very slow, gradual uptrend, just like that of SPY. So we're going to be watching these levels and just know that the bulls are trying to push it up very, very slowly. Last but not least, we have Nvidia stock, which had a very, very similar structure of as that of like Apple. We had a nice bounce off this 410 area. I called for downside on Nvidia, and yes, we did technically see the downside. We saw a big drop for the first couple of hours, and then it managed to base around this 410 area before making its way back up. So on Nvidia, we're approaching the 200 EMA on the daily, not the daily, the 5 minute time frame, and we're getting very close to 420, which is where we have some key resistance. Now, what's interesting is 420 is historical resistance, but our 200 EMA happens to be around 419. So there's some type of resistance between 419 to 420. And if we get above 420, that's going to be a bullish signal. It could push towards 425. And if you want to turn really bullish, you want to see it break and hold 425. For support, watch 415. If that fails us, watch 412.5. And below that, we have 410 basically as critical support. Right now, Nvidia has been on an uptrend on the 5 minute time frame. On the 30 minutes time frame, it also has a bullish cross on the PPO. It is looking like it's trying to hold up. And also on the 4 hour, it's trying to curl a bit. So it's looking quite decent. So the thing about Nvidia is this is not a super strong uptrend. It's not like pumping really hard. It's just like a slow, gradual uptrend. It is kind of choppy at the same time, but it's trying to push higher. So I'm going to be watching these levels very, very slowly. And don't forget to be watching our 200 EMA on the 5 minute time frame. And don't forget about 420, which I believe is going to be a very critical resistance for today. All right, so that's pretty much it for the video. Make sure you watch all of these levels and just know the market's attempting to rebound. We're going to remain calm, cool, and collected no matter what. And with that said, I thank every single one of you so much for listening. Thanks again, guys. Tesla and the market to the moon because the long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.